I finished this behemoth, 11/22/63, and I loved it. It was really good. I had such an incredible time with these characters. For me, along the way, this became much less a story about the JFK assassination than it did about Jake and his emotional journey and the town that he fell in love with, and just sort of him falling for the past. And so that was hands down, that was the strongest through line in this book for me, with obviously some commentary about time travel and the implications of that. But yeah, I was really satisfied with the ending. I loved how it all came together. It did make me cry, which honestly is always a win. I love a book that can pull an emotional impact from me. But if you know nothing about this book, but basically we have our main character, Jake Epping. He goes to have dinner at his diner that he loves to go to, he loves to frequent, and the owner of the diner makes him go into the pantry, and he steps out into 1958. And from there, Al is able to convince him to take up the mantle of his quest to save JFK. In his argument, if you save JFK, you could potentially prevent like the Vietnam War, prevent the acceleration of the conflict there, could potentially even bring forward the civil rights movement faster, maybe even stop the MLK assassination. Like, Al's theories are that this is such a watershed moment in history that if you could stop it, then maybe you could really improve the world and make things go for the better. And so Jake, he's initially very skeptical. But what convinces himself to do it is he had a former adult student in his evening classes at the high school who wrote such a moving and touching story about the night his father killed most of his family except for himself, that he says, okay, I know that happened in October of 58, so I can just go back, stay there for like a month, and maybe if I can just save Harry's family, that will be worth it. And then along the way, he starts to convince himself that maybe he can do both his goal and Al's goal. So I just thought that the way that this story all came together made a lot of sense for the ways that Jake really falls in love with living in the past, because I think if he'd gone back and he didn't like it, or he didn't connect to it as much, or if he didn't have that emotional connection to his student, it's my argument that I think he just wouldn't have done it for Al. And so I think the pacing of this really makes sense for the ways that Jake really had to convince himself to take up this task. And even though the ending made me cry, I still really loved it, and I would highly recommend it. Yeah, 5 stars. Loved it.